This is Melina and
Jordan.
And we are the board certified BAes.
BAes.
Welcome back.
It's good to see you.
You too. Like we live together. We work together, but we never see each other. Make it make sense.
Yeah, you can't. You just can't. There's no way.
So yeah.
I don't understand.
It's been a crazy weekend.
It's like
jam-packed.
you're avoiding me.
I know. I am. I'm just kidding.
Anyways,
we're happy to be here today. Today we are talking about training.
Yes, we are.
That'll be a fun one. Okay.
Yes, training's good.
Okay, so
Important.
let's just jump into it. So, what does training look like in our field? It's like a game TV show host. For
Have you ever thought about doing it?
I think I got enough going on right now, but when I'm like ready for the next thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm actually really good at like commentating for like rides, hosting, but just not.
Be a cruise ship host?
If I get the trip for free, but if I gotta work, then it's not worth it. Anyways.
All right, back
What
to
does training look like in the field of ABA?
That depends on where you work, to be honest. But for the most part, there is I think it's a loaded question because there's a little bit that goes into it. First of all, the part that goes into it is that there is far more demand than there is supply, right? Like behavior therapy, ABA is prescribed, recommended a lot. And the supply of BCBAs, qualified therapists, is not able to meet that. And who knows if it ever will be able to. Yeah. So there is this push just to get people in to the field because something is better than nothing. Mm-hmm. Although I don't necessarily agree with that. Mm-mm. But so in the field as a whole, you see a lot more online trainings where you never interact with a client or a child or an individual. You watch videos, you put in 40 hours, and then maybe a role play here or there, and they say, yeah, you're ready to go. You can go and work with this kiddo that is really in danger of hurting himself or someone else because of the behaviors they engage in. And that kind of leads to the turnover of the field too.
Absolutely.
So that's the other part, is like you got all these people that are with well intentions a lot of the time trying to make a difference and help people, but just don't have the tools or the resources or adequate training enough to make those calls that they need to in the moment for those behavioral situations, which makes it kind of hard. I think that is a big part of it. Yeah. There are a few places that do training like completely independently individualized for each therapist that comes in. But I think on the other side of that as well, agencies also promote the, pick your own hours and, flexible work schedules. And do you want to work? Do you want to make a difference? Without actually explaining a lot of the hard stuff that we go through that we need a lot of that training for.
I agree. That makes me think of the first place that we worked at, and like even just the week that they're like introducing you, putting you through training. It's like they show you like the cutest little tiny baby children that are just so happy, and like while they're playing with like bubbles or something, like it just looks so perfect. Like, what? This is what I gotta do all day? I don't know if that's true everywhere else, but I feel like it's trickery because it's like, yeah, that is part of the job and there are beautiful moments like that, but that's not the whole thing. So
little bait and switch on you.
Yeah, like, wait, hold on. We didn't go over when that kid has a blowout in their diaper and now I got to change it. Things like that where you just don't think about until you're in the moment. Yeah.
And I think that's where we as a field might be doing a disservice, because as BCBAs, we're like, no, we got to help the kids that we have. We got to, get in there. We got to help. We got to build skills. We got to decrease behaviors. And so we're just on this like push to try and like make a difference. Yeah. And we don't necessarily take the time in the beginning on onboarding someone in a lot of ways to do that. And I know that there's states out there where you have to be an RBT first. So they do a 40-hour training online to get their certificate because a BCBA can't be free for 40 hours to do that.
Yeah.
And that just kind of adds to the training. Here in California, it's not that way. You don't need to have an RBT to work with every single insurance company, only some.
Yeah.
And so training is a little bit different, but they still use the same methods, which is the videos. And some of them are great. They have a lot of information, but it does not get you ready, in my opinion, for working with a kid that's going to throw stuff at you, or they're really upset and they're having tantrum behaviors. It's, going and passing a test from that is great. You absolutely can.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we're potentially losing out on a lot of like well-intentioned people that want to make a difference, want to help.
Yeah.
But don't feel supported in doing that. And that's what causes that high turnover, along with the marketing for flexible work schedules and, work
They
from
don't
home.
mention that you might be canceled on half the time. Now you got
That's
2
it.
hours of work a week. They're like, as long as you're flexible, we can too.
Yeah,
Just
and
kidding.
if you live in one of those like high expense states,
Yeah, you ain't got time for that.
like the one that we live in, it's frequent cancellation is a major killer.
Yeah. And two, I feel like I think one thing that is hard to train in 40 hours is assessment.
Oh gosh, no.
And I feel like you don't really know what you're doing until you know how to assess a situation. Because, we learn about antecedents, we learn about things that are, triggering to our clients. And so when you're able to assess, like, okay, maybe I'm pushing too hard, or maybe they don't like that, or maybe like, oh, okay, am I ready to take on this behavior in this moment? If not, maybe I do something else right now. If you don't have that, I feel like you miss a lot. Or completely like set yourself up for failure. And I feel like that's where burnout can happen too. It's like once that assessment piece turns on for like staff, I feel like it just like starts to fall into place and make more sense. But again, that's hard to teach until they're like in there.
It is. It's very hard to teach. And I think it also, there's another part to it too, which is not just the assessment, but helping staff just knowing that because you've got this list of goals to work on, doesn't mean that that's what you have to do the whole session.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the staff get stuck on like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And they forget that, they didn't have breakfast. And so they don't want to listen to you right now until they get some food in their belly. And
or this is the first day back from being sick for a whole week.
Yeah. And you're just on like pushing until they get the results or the trials in or whatever it is that they're working on without even thinking about the human side of it. Allowing kids or clients to have bad days. And then on top of that, allowing kids or clients to express themselves in ways, right? And know that as behavior analysts, behavior comes first. So let's work on those behaviors and like, help get them in a good place before we start saying like, you can do this, do that. And giving all those instructions. 100%. And that all does come down to training, but again, it just comes down to time, and there's not enough time or resources to be able to put that individualized quality training and effort into every single employee that gets into the field. And some of those big private equity agencies out there that just pour in staff, or I can't even say staff, they pour in human bodies.
A heartbeat.
Yeah. And I say that because I can't say staff yet because they might not even be qualified.
Yeah.
At once upon a time, trying to train, 40 hours for 6 or 7 people at a time every week, and feeling like I'm going to be producing the right candidates to work with some of the kids that I see, it was just a daunting task. It's like, well, I could pick you, or I don't think that you're going to make it. And then, two months down the line, seeing that there's only one or none left from that cohort that went through.
Yeah, that was weird. I went through that cohort. I went through like that situation where I was like, where's everybody else? Where'd they go?
Yeah.
Came in with 10, ended with 2. What's bizarre about our field and like one-to-one staff is like they can be like 17 years old, fresh out of high school, and never have had a job. like obviously we kind of vet and see if, you know, they're qualified. But like other places that like we're saying they're just filling those spots, that's like a baby, right? Like that's crazy to me that like you can literally be like, oh, I got my bachelor's, I mean not bachelor's, my GED, graduated from high school, and I can start this. And then it's like 40-hour training, never had a job, 40-hour training, throw them in a home, okay, good luck. Like that's, to think that that's like happening is kind of scary, right? Like let alone someone that's 20 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus, and you're like, okay, now I got to teach this person how to do ABA. It's like,
and be a professional,
yeah,
and like
exactly.
manage and have organizational skills,
Exactly.
all that. Yeah, it's a lot.
Are you reliable? Do you know what it means to dress like decent, like not have your whole belly button hanging out? True story.
Do you have transportation?
Do you have transportation? Do you have transportation, and not find out after they got hired? Things like that.
Just like those simple questions that you can do on an onboarding really help. But we could say that there's a lot that can change training, right, and make it better, but there's never going to be enough.
No.
As when we sign up for this field as clinicians, we are choosing to be students of the field
forever.
for a lifetime, because there's always new science, there's always new theories, new hypotheses, new things being studied, new disciplines that can be intertwined. There's always new things, and that's why we have CEUs, right? Like that's just a big part of it, and
which are starting for RBTs next year.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that, friends.
Yeah, making sure agencies stay on top of that too.
AKA Jordan. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So it is interesting just seeing, the struggles that are across the board. It comes with that supply and demand, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a bunch of people that are ill-willed at the top, like try and do that. It might be that they are so willed that they are just making decisions that aren't the best. Because again, there can't be anything done for like 5 years of training. Like that there's not, that's,
we can't pay
you
for
can't
that.
do that.
First of all, you can't run a business like that.
Exactly.
That's coming from nowhere. Like no funds are supplying for that part.
Exactly. And to be effective with kids, like you have to have people that are capable and able to work. Training, there is a lot of this that is on the job. Like you don't really learn how to do a lot of things until you've been in it for a while. But you have to have that no fear kind of mentality of like, I can do this. And when you see staff that have that, those are the ones that you want to make sure that you're diving into and not letting them burn out. You should do that with everybody, but those ones in particular that have just like that can handle it, they are comfortable, they are excited.
You have to be a specific breed for this field, I feel like. Like I feel like there's some things that can be taught, and then there's some things that are like natural. Yeah,
for sure. It's totally it. But that's just our field right now. Where it is, and who knows, in the future or in the near future, things might change. I think that there's already this, like the pendulum starting to swing, because there's a lot of like burned stories of families unhappy with ABA, backlash from ABA, even some newer, I don't want to say newer class BCBAs because I don't think I know as many or know enough, but there is like this middle ground of BCBAs, I feel like, that are like, no, we need to do better. And they're trying to change the pendulum and have things swinging, which I think is amazing for the field. I think there are a lot of qualified individuals out there. But those BCBAs that
were trained by psychologists.
That just did not like get the training.
Behavior specific.
Because behavior analysts can work in a variety of different places and in a variety of different ways, right? So, but you can get your hours, not just by BCBAs or doing some of that work. You can get supervised online and things like that, which goes into the training that's not the best. And then all of a sudden you open an agency and now you're working with kids you're not qualified to work with, because you don't have the competent skills to do so. And that's not to say that they're a bad person, but they're just in over their head. And so you really need to have a level out experience on all ends in this field.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts on training. That was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be in terms of just that question. Sorry, it was kind of loaded.
No, it was, I mean, I think it's necessary. And yeah, I think that's the hard part is like the combo of we need more people in our field and we need better training. Because I feel like when they both exist at the same time, that's hard.
Yeah, it is. It is. But training is universal, right? There's training for everything.
Yeah.
Right. If you take it from, just our perspective, right, as parents of two now, how do you think we do training each other on what it is that we're seeing?
Training each other? I feel like we don't train each other. I feel like we talk it out.
Yeah, but that even in itself is a form of training. So if we take out like the way the word training and what we just talked about being the field as it looks, right? It's kind of official, organized, and all that sort of stuff. But when we're working with our kids or hanging out with them or seeing behaviors or doing stuff, us talking about them is us collaborating together to make a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So that's where I wanted to ask that question. It's like, how do you see us training each other to be able to handle with things? Like, oh, I'm seeing this. This is how I've been doing it. This has been working. Like, let's try and do this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is what parenting is, basically. So
getting on the same page.
Yeah, no. Well, at least when it's done right, in my opinion, right? I will say feel, because I can't be like, this is data driven, blah, 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 whatever. As a mom, as a wife, I feel like it's so important for us to be on the same page. Otherwise, one, that's confusing for a kid. I'll say we bring this back to our reinforcement systems in clinic. If we're not on the same page and the team's not doing it all right, that kid does not understand what the expectation is. So I feel like whenever a new behavior arises or something, a pattern we're seeing with potty training, like when is she having accidents and why is this happening? Like, it's important to talk about those things because maybe you're saying something I don't, or maybe I'm saying something you don't. Or even with the baby, right? Like in the beginning of their lives, they tend to spend more time with me just because I'm like their life source, right? So like maybe if I'm leaving for the store for a few hours, making sure that I'm like, oh, by the way, this changed. Like if I don't do that, then you're like,
oh, I'm in panic mode. You don't have to sugarcoat it. I'm like, does she have enough milk? Do I need to feed her? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that?
Yeah. Does she swaddle anymore? Is she not swaddled? So yeah, just sleep on her belly. Like just like all those little things, whether it be behaviors or just new things that are happening developmentally, like it's just, I think it's really important for us to always collaborate and always be talking about it with each other so that we're aware.
I think that really brings up a good point too about just parenting in general. So like we do parent trainings and we'll just do another podcast on that, but just signing up to be parents, what kind of training is there?
I mean, they have like, I feel like a lot of trainings are about like the birthing process itself, not like the manual for the aftermath.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what makes it hard. Like I feel like there's so much anticipation for pregnancy and birth. And then once the baby comes out, it's like, oh yeah, now we have to care for this child for the next 18 plus years. So how much, I mean, there's like doulas, right? There's like, I mean, when your child goes to daycare or preschool, you know, they can share some of their info, but sometimes they're just pulling out of their, you know, they're not really trained in anything, you know, child development and stuff. So I don't know. You really have to, it's hard because Google. I don't know. Google.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
is that the training?
I guess also too, the default then would be how we were raised.
Yeah.
From what we remember.
Right.
Which isn't necessarily
it's not horrible, but it's also like they were just trying to figure it out as well.
Yeah.
So
we have generations of generations
they didn't
just
have
trying
Google.
to figure it out.
They did not have Google.
Yeah.
So
which could be a blessing.
Which even things like me texting you like, oh, hey, Aaliyah's not feeling well, blah, 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 blah. Or like calling you, hey, Aaliyah's not feeling well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, when they didn't have cell phones, it's like you just didn't know your kid was sick all day until you got home and saw it. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they probably sent a messenger with a mail by horseback and said,
Exactly.
like,
Pigeon.
pick your kid up.
Yeah.
They're sick.
Pager. They paged you and was like, oh, I think that, but then that's it. Like, do you memorize the school's phone number? I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah.
so there's not much.
There isn't a lot. And then you think about just babies, like you were talking about, coming out of high school who might not have any training in themselves, then having to
They
care
ain't
for
never
somebody.
done their own laundry.
Yeah.
They ain't never set an alarm clock.
Yeah, and now
got
they're
their
trying to
license
care
yesterday.
for someone else.
Yeah.
That's hard. I mean, if just thinking about our experience, we didn't. I mean, yeah, we did a lot of Googling on parenting and, being behavior analysts and you being a teacher, and like our histories made it a little bit easier. But a lot of our families that we work with don't have that experience, don't have that that training behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're all of a sudden thrust into this world where they've got so much more to think about.
Yeah.
That's
Being a
kind of
parent
difficult.
is hard. But then when you have, the aspect of it's a special needs baby as well, it's just so much to navigate and figure out if you don't have someone in your corner that already knows
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. That's really hard. Man. Well, we can take that into the next podcast that we do, or whenever we do the one on parent training and what it should look like and strategies and stuff, because I feel like there's so much to unpack there. Yeah. It just makes it so hard, but that's why we do this. That's why we do what we do, to try and help out.
Yeah. I'll leave you with a question.
You always do.
Do you think, it's not funny, it's just a real question. Do you think it's possible that you can be a good, like, I know good is subjective, but do you think it's possible to be a good BCBA and not be able to teach well?
I guess that would depend on being a BCBA and what you're doing with it.
Okay.
I think that would depend on where you go with it.
Okay.
Because for what we're doing, no. Right? Because you're training staff to be able to work with kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if you were a
OBM, but even that, I feel like it's like,
yeah, but you're changing things in the organization, not necessarily training people. But there's the part of it that is going to be training people, but you're probably working with just a few individuals rather than training like an entire staff. You train a few individuals at the top to make changes throughout. So, but even then, there's still a little bit of training to that. But I was thinking more of when people are taking their BCBA and doing consulting. Not everyone's a good consultant, right? So they might. So there's a difference between consulting and collaborating, right? So you might consult. You don't have to train anybody. Just this is what you should do. Give them a packet and walk away.
that's crazy.
Right? Now, I'm not saying that all consultants do that or anything like that, but there are consultants that I would assume do that, because there are BCBAs that I've seen do that.
Yeah.
So, so that's where I would say with your question, and it's not just an easy like yes or no. It is a depends, like this whole
Always,
field.
it depends.
But because we do a lot with this field, there are BCBAs that are working with athletes.
Yeah.
Right now, that can be a little bit different because you don't have to do as much, because you can talk to them and they can do the work.
Yeah.
So I think there is a level of training, but there are some places that you will need a lower level of training, being able to train others than others. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was my question.
yeah, well, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We
Thanks,
hope
guys.
to see you soon. Bye.
See you on the next one.